Welcome to the Boss Babe Share Your Business, Learn and Teach podcast. Here, women come together from around the world, different backgrounds, faiths, views, expertise, and countries with the common goal to lift others up, share their expertise, and present their most beautiful jewels of wisdom in business and in life. We're here to spread love, health, and wealth around the globe in massive, long-lasting ripples. My name's Jenna Martin, and it's an honor to be here with you today. Get a cup of tea or your favorite drink and enjoy. It looks like we're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Boss Babe Share Your Business, Learn and Teach podcast. My name is Jenna Martin. I'm here just to connect women around the world so that we can all share what we know and also learn from each other. And that's the basis of this podcast. We have wonderful women coming forward around the world, sharing their knowledge, their gifts, their talents to help everyone rise so we can make this world a better place. Today we have Jody Maley. She's the heart-centered entrepreneur and also a good friend, just someone who's been around, for me at least, since the beginning and just has reflected beauty, and she's got so much to offer and she was the most heart-centered person that I spoke to, so it's funny once I found out that was your name, the name of your business. It was perfect. So Jody, will you tell us a little bit about you and what you do?
Thank you. You were one of my favorite people too. And when we met I think it was just at the beginning of COVID starting.
Yes. Yeah.
So it was a very interesting time. And I believe people should always kind of do what their brilliance is and then ask for help where you're not the brightest. Mm-hmm. And so with the whole COVID going online, I wasn't really, I needed help. And Jenna was the person that I reached out to. Oh. She's a great presence online. She's great at marketing. And, you can speak so authentically in your words, like written word, where that's not my gift. Oh.
You're authentic. It just needed a little bit of attention grabbing. But you're one of the most authentic people I know.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And so that's where I hosted 2 summits called the Heart-Centered Entrepreneur Series, and Jenna was one of my wonderful speakers. But I've been in sales and doing sales training and leadership. It's difficult to say, but over 26 years now. So I have 6 kids, and I started when one of my oldest boys was just like a couple months old, and I had an older daughter. So we have my current spouse, we have 2 his, 2 mine, and 2 together. Okay. So I started in business when my children were younger. I wanted to get out of the house, wanted to have real conversations with people again. And so that's when I got into a direct sales company. Quickly rose up the ranks. And then people were asking me, how are you doing that? Blah, blah, blah. And then I had to learn how to train what I was doing, because a lot of people, you just assume, like I was raised in a direct sales or a entrepreneur family. My dad was a school teacher, but always had some kind of side gig on
awesome.
Yeah, and so I was raised literally on the laps of people like Zig Ziglar was one of. I was 9 years old when I first met him, and those were just the kind of people that I grew up and around. And so it didn't dawn on me that people don't always know how to authentically run a business.
Yep. That's big. Yeah. And I can relate. My dad had his own business and different side things. So I grew up around, it's almost like a way of thinking. But it can be very natural and authentic. So it's amazing that you can teach it. And you're such an amazing teacher, the way you express things. I tend to be more general, and I love how specific the way you convey things are so that people really get it.
Yeah, and that's been a learning curve too, right? Mm-hmm. Because you're not always talking to, I teach personality dimensions. That's sort of the tool I use to coach people. And there's 4 different personalities. But again, I didn't know I was doing this naturally. But then having a tool that can help support me, and then people go, oh, I get it. And when I was in leadership and leadership development with as regional vice president of a company at the time, and they had asked me to do, sales and leadership training for them. And I really had to think about it because I'm like, I don't know how to teach or train that. And so that's how you actually learn the most, is when you, at least for me, I get thrown into it first, and then I learn how to do it.
Yeah, and it sounds like you do it from a heart-centered space. So if someone, just for people listening who may still have their 9-to-5 jobs, or maybe are meeting certain limitations they have to overcome in their business, or being thrown into the mix and having to learn, how do you come back to your heart and know what to do in those situations? Because a lot of people, fear can make you jump out of your heart. So how did you have the wisdom, or what tools did you use to come back down to make better decisions?
Okay, so I always relate everything to a story, right? I'm very story orientated. And so one year, when I was pregnant with our last child, so child number 6, I was actually on bed rest for about 6 or 7 weeks before he was born, and then on bed rest 6 or 7 weeks after. So it was a very long haul, but I was, like I said, a regional vice president within my company at the time, and I didn't want to lose my ranking. And so I'm like, what can I do? So the one thing that I did was I did business literally from my bed. Back then, this is 18, he's 18 now. So back then, we didn't have Zoom, we didn't have internet, we didn't have a lot of the tools that we have now that would probably make that, as in COVID. I felt like I was in COVID because you're housebound, you had whatever. And so I literally had my phone, and I just did 6 calls a day. And I, on purpose, phoned my downline, phoned past customers, phoned past hostesses, and I kept my business going by doing that. And it really made me center about being more heart-centered, because I think at that time I had been in this business already 9 years, and I think I lost a little bit of being that heart-centered, authentic style. And that year made me focus on connection, knowing who I was, connection, knowing who my team was, connection, and knowing my customers, and having that space of not being able to go out and physically do shows or do sales trainings or the monthly trainings that I was supposed to be doing within the company. I had to modify it.
Wow.
So, yeah. And then out of that year, I boosted my income that year. I actually won a national award that year by increasing my business by 125%.
No way. Jody, that's so cool. Yeah.
One of the biggest business years. And out of that end of the year, because at the beginning of the year, it was in January and I had him in April. So at the beginning of the year, I had taken the personality assessment to be a coach and a facilitator. And I used that as a tool throughout the year. And so at the end of the year, when I won this national award and I was flown off to Toronto for I think it was 5 days, all paid expenses and stuff like that. And I didn't feel like I had earned it, because I did my business that year in a very non-traditional way. I wasn't hosting monthly meetings. I wasn't doing, the regular shows, the typical things that were building other people's business. And yet my business increased by a crazy amount. And so when I was there, so this is part of my story, right? So while I was there, the president of the company had us all write down, if you had no limitations on you and your business and whatever, what would you really want? And I immediately wrote down to train women in personal development so that they would never be where I'm at right now, where I'm at this amazing event. I earned this top award in Canada, and yet I didn't feel like I deserved it. And I did not ever want another, get teary already whenever I think of this, because I just want women to know that you are worthy, that you have to offer, people want, right? And I didn't want any women to feel that you couldn't enjoy your just rewards. as well.
Wow.
Very, very important.
Wow. I have goosebumps running down my arms. Yeah.
That was a huge turning point for me. And then that's where I decided to do personality dimensions as my own business and not be part of a sales company or direct sales with products, but develop my own. And then this is where we come into this, what we're going to talk about, the 4 quadrants of a business, because I had no idea stepping out onto my own as my own entrepreneur, what that really meant and how the different hats that people have to put on.
Yeah, so most of the women in Boss Babe are just starting out. Like, all of this is new. So learning to connect with people, especially online when it's not face to face, and still having that, again, heart-centered spirit, and then how to make sales when you don't know someone very well. And yeah, it's a process. So I feel like I'd really love if we could just dive right in. I'd love to hear about the 4 quadrants. I don't know if you want to dive in that fast, but you've got my attention. Yeah.
That's what it's all about. So there's 4 different quadrants of a business that when you are starting out that you have to look at. And again, maybe one of these quadrants you might be really great at. Like I can identify, because I've known Jenna now for almost 2 years.
Yeah.
Time flies. So I kind of know where Jenna probably is on this quadrants, but she can answer herself. But the first quadrant that people look at is behind the scenes, or the tech. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Very important. Because especially if you're going to be building a business online, or even if you're going to be doing it offline, or even if, like, I sold furniture in a furniture store for quite a while too, even if you do that, you still need the behind the scenes, the tech behind it. Like, a lot of people will go on and check out a website before they walk into the store or walk into your space, correct?
Yeah.
So behind the scenes and tech, and even knowing what we're doing here today. Like, if you are going to host a podcast or you're going to be coaching people, do you know how to start a Zoom? I mean, we're all getting pretty good at it now,
but or video editing.
Or video editing. And stuff. So that's a cap. That's definitely a cap that people can wear. It's not, I've learned to do it because on a shoestring budget when I first started out, I was the tech person. So I knew how to design. So it's good to start with that, because even if that's not what you love to do, I think you should know the essentials of how to go in and do your own, how to make a blog post, how to change a picture on your website. I think that those are important skills that every person should kind of know and understand. So that's the 1 quadrant of a business, is having a place where people can get to know you, right? Know who you are, what you stand for. And I would suggest to anybody that if you don't own your name, go and buy a domain name. The first one you should buy should be your name.
I agree. I have changed so many times since I first started my business. And yes, I am all Boss Babe, share your business, learn and teach, but I'm so many other things now too. So that I wish I had known that in the beginning.
Yes. And I actually work part-time in a law office too, and I start new corporations for people. And that's one of the big things for corporations is having a name. So up here in Canada, it's probably the same in the States, that you have to do a name request or whatever. But that would be the first thing, is that if you get big enough and you need to, you own shares, you want to do anything like that, but you definitely need to have your name reservation. So you can do that legally, and then you can go and buy the domain. And if it is something that maybe someone else has taken your name already, I'm lucky enough that with Jody Maley, the only other Jody Maley that I've come across is a NASCAR driver and a dude. So
the other Jenna Martin's a photographer.
Okay.
So, I get it.
Yeah. So if that name is taken, then just make it a little bit longer. Put your first name in there, put your initial, put something in there just to differentiate. I know some people who have very common names who have gone and maybe put in the Jody Maley or something like that. There's ways around it, and you can definitely and buy it in your own country. Try to buy the .com, but I also I'm in Canada, so I own jodymaley.ca as well. Okay.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. And so the third quadrant, because I'm going to go kind of backwards, the third quadrant of a business that you should be looking at is traffic. So once you have that behind the scenes, you need traffic. And in a brick and mortar business, like when I worked for a direct sales company, I didn't really worry about the traffic so much, right? Because it was a home party plan business. So I relied on going into someone's home. I booked 4 shows. So essentially, I would have bookings all the time. So for me, that was traffic, right? But if you are an entrepreneur and you have your own business, then all of a sudden you are looking at, okay, now that you have this beautiful website built, or you have a Facebook page, and Facebook's going to be changing, so we got to be wary of, not putting all your apples in just one cart, which we've heard before. But maybe you want to then beef up your LinkedIn if that's where your clients are going to be, or Instagram or whatever. But you need to get the traffic and the eyeballs there. So traffic, if you aren't an expert at this, I wouldn't recommend going out, and some traffic you can buy. So if you do you have a Facebook, like we had an event today. So if we wanted traffic to that, you could, about 10 days before, and it doesn't cost much, like really $5. I boost a lot of my videos on Facebook, and with a boost of just like $3 sometimes, because I'll pay for the 5, but it might only get boosted. And I'll go from like 0 views to a minimum 1,500 up to like 4,500.
So amazing. That's great. Yeah.
Just a small boost.
Small boost. Yeah.
Small boost. It doesn't take a whole lot to get that traffic to that. But if you know traffic experts and that's not your expertise, by all means, pay for it.
Yeah, especially virtual assistants. There's a lot of virtual assistants in Boss Babes, so you can always ask a question. Ooh. Yeah, and just say, hey, this is what I want. Can you recommend someone? And perfect. That's a lot of.
Well, when we talk after, I'll have you recommend a few people to me, because I have a free quiz that I did a few months ago.
Cool.
Yeah. And then your second quadrant is marketing. And I think that this is where you are really good. It's marketing. Yeah. And lots of people put sales and marketing together, but I really want to differentiate that those are different quadrants.
Very different. Yeah.
Because a lot of people will hire a sales and marketing person, and the marketing will be done great, but they don't get the sales. Yep. Or vice versa. They think they can just sell something and not really warm up your audience. So that's what I kind of view marketing as, is the words that are that you use to relate to your audience, to make yourself known and likable, and that people can, that know, like, and trust factor, right?
Yeah.
That's where the marketing is. And that's not my strong suit. That's why I rely on beautiful people.
Oh, thanks.
Like Jenna. And I actually have hired a marketing coach that I've been working with. And again, I just kind of think that when you're first starting out, you seem to wear these 4 hats, because I think it's good that people kind of have a bit of knowledge, but don't frustrate yourself so much to the point that it's costing you, because you feel all these pieces have to be perfect before you get to the first quadrant, which is sales. And that's where I excel. I love sales and the authentic sales. And I don't think in 26 years of doing this that I've ever been told, well, at least not to my face, that I'm pushy or aggressive or anything like that. I think sales conversations, there's 3 parts to them. Mm-hmm. You have the intro part where you're getting, talking about your business. Then you have the actual conversation, and then you have the closing. And people stumble maybe in the first, second, or third part of that.
Or all of it.
Or all of it.
Yeah.
And I mean, sales, people join a business or they get a great idea and then they probably have those 3 quadrants. But then when it comes to the sales, that's what keeps people in a business.
Yeah.
That's what keeps them in a group, or because there's nothing more exhilarating than to know that you did a great service and that you got paid for it and that you can go and celebrate, right?
And you know what? At least to me, that's the basis of sales. If you go in with that attitude of being of service and providing transformation and just seeing if they're a good fit, at least I know you can make 10 times as many sales as I can, but that for me has helped the most. What you just said of providing a great product or service so you go in confident.
And I think there's a myth, and this is a myth buster that we'll put out there right now.
Okay.
A lot of people believe or are taught by their either upline or people who are coaching them or helping them with sales and stuff. And you've probably heard this, you need to have 100 no's before you can get that yes. And I'm like, how defeating is that? That's horrible. Who's ever given that advice? Stop.
Oh, yeah. I think that's on average or something, but please do better. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And the thing is that the truth is that if you can get to know who you are as a sales, like your authentic sales style, so that's my giveaway today too, by the way. If you get to know who you are and are comfortable with how you talk about your product or service, then sales becomes a lot more natural. It becomes a lot more authentic. It becomes, like you said, it becomes a service versus, yikes, hey, Jenna, I do this and blah, 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 blah. And then the person's like, I didn't even want to know all that.
Yeah.
and information overload. Mm-hmm. So that's part of the sales profile analysis that I do for people for free. And then you can just, for now anyways, until I get too busy, but I really do want to connect with people knowing what type of business you do, and is your sales working for you? Are you struggling a bit? Like, let's talk about it. And so that's why I developed this sales profile analysis. It's totally free. Totally free.
I want it.
And so you can just go in and I will walk you through a bunch of questions just to see where are you the strongest, because as with the 4 quadrants of a business where you could probably put on that cap of I really am good at this, but I'm not so great at that. And same thing in a sales conversation. It's like I'm really good at introducing myself to people and I'm good at telling them what the product is. And then, oh man, I don't even have a closing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You don't ask people for a credit card, you're not really going to get too far ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
And so it then just talks about knowing what your sales style is, and then speaking your ideal client's language.
Powerful. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that means?
Yeah. So when you actually have, so speaking your ideal client's language is asking the questions that lead them back to you. So if somebody has, like, I know with your Boss Babes group, that you love, learn, and teach with people, right? Like that's sort of your motto. Mm-hmm. And so when people kind of go, oh, I would like to learn a little bit more about that. Okay, so then you've already kind of got their attention. And I know that you do this so wonderfully, where you just lead them into a conversation speaking their language of what they are looking for. And this all comes down to really knowing your ideal client and really the results that they're looking for versus I have this amazing product. This is the company. It's been in business for 25 years, blah, blah, blah. People don't really want to know that. I mean, if they do, they'll ask. But really, they want to know I'm over 50. Do you have a product that's going to make me look a little bit younger?
Yeah.
That's all I want to know. And how do I use it once I have it?
Yeah. Can I give an example real quick of that? So I'm also an acupuncturist, and I was telling people the history of acupuncture. I was going into the 12 channels and all the things. And one day, this guy, I was overstimulated that day, and he wanted to know all this information. I'm not usually in a bad mood. I was in a bad mood that day. And I said, you know what? If you come in on Tuesday, I'll hit this point and we'll drain all the inflammation out of your neck. And I learned, and he came in. And then after that, almost everyone who I spoke to, more from a peaceful, happy place, came in. I had almost 100% turnaround from talk. It wasn't about me, it was about them. And of course, you have to love what you do and share about you too. But just to, like you said, paint a story or a picture around what you're sharing. That was my biggest lesson in sales.
Right. Because all he cared about was the fact that I have pain right here.
Yeah.
And instead of going through all which you know all the steps, you know all the nuances, but really he just wanted to know, can you fix the pain?
Yeah.
And sometimes that we get so caught up in, how we can make things for people and just forget that, you know what? Just bring back the humanness of what you were doing, because we are all humans. And that's the other thing too, especially in this day and age, is that people rely on a Facebook post or an Instagram thing, and they can't understand why they're not having sales. Sales is really people do business with people. And so you have to have an actual conversation with people. And I think that people are more enjoying that now too, that, oh, you took the time out. And I was not that I was against the free assessments and stuff, but I'm like, I just don't have time. I don't have time. I'm so busy with all these other things. And my marketing person was like, but it comes down to people, Jody. I'm like,
oh, shoot, right.
She was right. And I've been having actually so much fun doing these assessments and getting to know people a little bit more. And it's a no pitch thing, by the way. You just come in, I'll do the assessment for you, and so that you can really assess what your sales style is, kind of where are you right now, where do you want to be, and what's kind of holding you back right in this minute. And this little assessment just kind of nicely and gently and authentically, shows people how.
Yeah. I don't know if that's what you did with me when we first started talking. I don't know if it was the same system, but I don't know. Well, I think, yes. So I was not in a good place with my life when you first came into my life, and I was saying no to everyone for everything. And there was something about you, and I think it's because you really wanted to get to know me. You asked very thoughtful, perceptive questions that were non-intrusive, but also pushing me to look at myself. And you kind of command a loving presence. You command the person to come forward and see their beauty. So for anyone watching, you're just if you want someone to sit with you and see you and take you to the next level, Jody's amazing. She gave me belief in myself during a time when no one was really around for me, and helped me see that Boss Babe was something big, and it was something to think about, to really heavily consider being proud of. And it's just not something I had let myself do. So it's interesting that you started off with the story of allowing yourself to celebrate yourself. So I highly recommend speaking with her and just having her, a connection. Jody, who do you normally work with? So our Boss Babe group, we have a lot of wellness coaches, social media business coaches, virtual assistants, boutique owners, makeup artists. Who normally typically resonates and does really well with your programs? Like who, if they're watching?
They're watching. So I think anyone who is an entrepreneur, obviously.
Yes. True. Might be good.
Yeah, that's sort of the first thing. I do have some men who have jumped into some of my programs, but traditionally, mostly women entrepreneurs. I have a high direct sales and in store, like I've sold lots of products in like a furniture store, jewelry store. I've sold, various other things. But basically anyone, and it doesn't matter if you are as a coach, virtual, online, offline, but if you're having sales conversations and you're not getting what you would consider enough yeses, and
That's powerful.
That's very powerful. So that's who I love to work with, is people who are struggling in sales conversations, they may be having conversations and they walk away going, I thought I gave a great presentation. Why did no one buy?
Yeah.
Then
I think that's a common feeling. Yeah.
That's where I love to step in. And I also love developing with coaches or people who are maybe looking at adding on to their team, or they have a team. And so one of my most recent people who've stepped on board with me into one of my programs, she actually owns a makeup program, and she is selling it through direct sales, but she knows her product really well. She doesn't know how to teach sales.
Okay.
And she doesn't know how to teach that to her team.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I see all the potential then of helping not only someone sell, but really grow and scale with a team. That's
exactly.
amazing.
So you might be a solopreneur struggling with, getting that closing sale. So you might want to join me. Or you might be wanting to scale your business and be hiring people, but you're not quite 100% sure who to hire. And that's where that 4 quadrants come in, because I think in 4 quadrants of a business, usually the first entrepreneur is probably really good at something in there. Like, I know that you're a master at marketing, right? I also know that you're pretty good at behind the scenes and tech stuff, but maybe you struggle with sales, or maybe you struggle with traffic. So 2 of those quadrants. So maybe then you want to hire people to support you in that. But then it's like, who do I hire? Because we tend to hire people who are most like us, when really your ideal hire is someone who's probably the opposite of you. And how do you get along with them? How do you get them task driven? Because with 4 different personalities, their wants and needs and even payment is different.
Interesting. I never thought about that. Yeah.
And I'm just speaking from experience, because that's what I first did, is I hired people that were just like me. I'm like, oh my gosh, we get along so well.
Yeah.
And then I realized we're both the same personality, and that I'm a starter. I'm not the greatest at finishing.
Okay, yes. We all have some of that. Yeah.
So I needed to hire someone who could do the finishing pieces. So for example, when we did our summit and we brought it online, I sort of knew what I was doing, but I didn't 100% know, which is why I hired Jenna to help me with that. Like, I need someone to, finish this and get it going and help me along with that. And so don't be shy too, that sometimes you are spending money to hire these people, and it doesn't even have to be full-time hiring for people.
Yeah, project-based.
Yeah.
And I've done a lot of that.
It can save you thousands of dollars in the long run, and it can save you hundreds and hundreds of hours trying to do it all yourself.
Yeah.
Right? So.
Big deal. Will you share with us maybe where someone started with you, and then their success story or end result that they got from working with you?
Oh boy. That's a hard one.
You gotta think back. just a testament to your work, kind of. I know you're amazing at what you do, but just for someone listening, so maybe they're starting off in a similar place, whether they're struggling with one of the 4 quadrants, and kind of where someone got to, after working with you.
Yes. So I'm going to use another leader that I was working with, and she actually had coaching practice.
Mm-hmm.
And so she really struggled with, she was great at getting people on to a discovery call, because a lot of coaches have their discovery calls to get to know them. She was doing her presentation really, really great. And then after she was working with me, I gently asked her, well, next time you have a call, like, do I have permission to maybe come in just so I can listen and hear with what you're saying and stuff like that? I did a lot of hands-on with that.
Yeah.
And she was actually getting yeses from the other people on the call, but she, in her personality, didn't ever want to be pushy or aggressive. And so she thought not asking for money.
Yeah, that's common. Yeah.
And so after the call, and I'm like, I think you should call that person back or touch base with them like ASAP within the next 24 hours or whatever, because they actually asked you on the call several times how they could work with you and stuff. And she goes, what? They did? And it was just so eye-opening for her, because she did a great presentation and stuff, but she didn't actually direct on how they could pay or work with her, even though they asked a couple times.
Oh my goodness.
She didn't want to offend them.
Yeah.
So worried about being pushy and aggressive that she didn't ask for it either. So
I think we could all relate to that. I started that way too. Now I'm like, okay, if you do it now, here's a free, I'll add this in. Like, let's just get this rolling. Over time, right? I think it just changes. Yeah.
And I think too that a lot of people who are just starting out as well, they aren't maybe clear on what that offer looks like, or even how to speak that authentic language of their ideal client. So we do a lot of work with that too. Another thing that I love working with people is that extrovert introvert, because I have worked with hundreds of ladies who are like self whatever. I'm an introvert. I'm not a salesperson, blah, blah, blah. And I talk about this all the time, but an introvert and extrovert is actually just a shift in how you energize yourself.
Okay.
It has nothing to do with your sales qualities or ability in asking for
too. Yeah.
Absolutely nothing. Being an introvert or an extrovert simply means that an extrovert gains energy by being around other people. So if you have a bad day and just talking with a friend or something with another person will re-energize you, versus an introvert will get re-energized by writing in a journal, reading a book quietly, but something that's solo done. And then there's a blend of the two. Yeah. So when people first meet me, they think I'm definitely the extrovert, but I'm actually kind of in between. So when I do a lot of speaking and talking, I gain energy from both. So if I'm speaking already, I regenerate by reading a book quietly, or I love Sudoku. I'm like hooked on it. It's like
nice.
I put it in my pocket. Yeah. And I'll just be there. It's math, right? So it's like I'm doing math, and for me, that's my downtime. And then, or opposite, when I'm at the law office and I'm doing a lot with books, when I come home, I actually need to talk to people and gain back up.
Oh, interesting. That's very insightful, because a lot of people do that without knowing they're doing that.
Yes.
And I'm a little similar too. A lot of people think because of online that I'm very outgoing and go with the flow, but I actually very much go off in nature on my own most of the time. So to empower those women watching who thrive on, I'll call it isolation, but not in a bad way. It's okay for that to be your way to recharge. It's okay to have that be important in your business plan. Yeah, and I love that you're taking away some shame that can be put around being introverted. There's some people have some shame around that, or there is shame, you need to step forward and be louder or do all the things, but you're pulling back and reframing it and saying, no, this, you can run a successful business being an introvert.
Yeah, absolutely.
How cool.
My best leaders have been, introverts who are too shy or whatever. I'm like, you don't have to be me. I don't want you to be me. I want you to be silly. How I speak is how I speak. And I don't want, you to be a replica of me. I want you to be who you are, your strong suits, how you speak, and put that into your conversation, while at the same time, the listening skills and then really speaking the language of the person you're speaking to.
Yeah, I actually really admire that about you too, because I do it to an extent, but you really help empower the person within themselves. Because I tend to do that, but I also have the system in place. But I love that you modify what you're doing. I see that you're amazing at that. Yeah, you modify it for who's in front of you, 100%. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's not something, like I said, that you just learn overnight.
Mm-hmm.
You can learn it. It can be taught. You can practice a lot and be more comfortable. And I really want women, like my mission in life from that, when I sat down and said, like, what is it I want people to do and move women forward in self-development, and to really get their aha moments.
Mm.
So to get the idea that, something that I just said clicked, and then they can take it, use it, come back, and tell me, did it work, did it not work?
Yeah.
And that's what makes me the most happy.
Yes. Which is great, because that's what people most need. So that works out really well. Well, thank you, Jody. Do you have any thing that you'd like to share? We're almost near the end here. Any words of wisdom or anything that comes to mind, anything we may have missed that any boss babe could use in her business? Do you have anything you'd like to share?
Well, I have a bit of wisdom that actually is a collaborative wisdom. So, yeah. So when I was doing my summits, I've done 2 of them, and I've interviewed over 50 amazing 6-digit income earners.
Nice.
And a lot of them my friends, and some people who I trained myself. And I asked them all kind of that same question, like, if you were to go back to when you first started, where a lot of these women are at, like, what advice would you give yourself? And I would say out of those 50 women, probably about 40 of them at least had this same advice, which was, don't be scared and afraid to pay for a coach or mentor to help move you forward. And they all said it made the difference of them having made, $1,000 or $2,000 a month to making over that 10,000 mark is when they actually paid to have someone help them.
I can relate. Yeah.
Because the 4 quadrants of business, I'm going to go over them again real quickly, which was behind the scenes, your traffic, your marketing, and then, of course, sales. We tend to wear all those hats to begin with. And I'm big on which one are you the most brilliant at, wear that hat, and hire out the rest.
Wow. Yeah. That's powerful too. You're just dropping gold. Yeah. Like, I wish I had known these things when I first started. So I just appreciate your it's not a system, but just that you've really addressed and looked at these things to really help the people you work with, so that they can start off right. Instead of, you probably would have saved me a year. So for anyone listening, like what you said, hire a coach who really knows what they're doing, because it'll save you so much time and so much money.
It will. And they'll get you to where you want to be quicker. I mean, I've struggled with some of this, doing it online and doing it myself for years, because I thought I had to, because I didn't have the budget. And then once I was able to set aside time to, instead of paying for the do-it-yourself, I would then ask people, what if I had to do it for me? What would that cost? Yeah. And then a lot of the do-it-yourself people who sell those do-it-yourself type programs, they never had people ask them that before. Because I'm like, I also have a disability, so I have daily chronic migraines. So I only have X amount of good hours that my brain can function and work through things and stuff. I mean, this is my fun time, like being on podcasts and having the assessments. Those are actually my fun. That's where my genius opens up. So to me, that's not work, but the behind the scenes and the technical stuff. And then I just was like, how much would it just cost for you to do it for me? And then people are like, oh. So then they'd have it. So they throw out something, and luckily, because nobody had asked them these questions before, I got in on some really, really great deals. Yeah. And then just set aside the money for have it done for you. So if it's something that can be there all the time, like your website can be there all the time, instead of worrying about it and figuring out all this stuff, there are some great, like you said, and even in the group, some great virtual assistants or other people who can put together a site for you anywhere, under the 1,000, which might not be the greatest, but the bones will be there, all the way up to, $2,500, $3,000 if you want it really optimized well. Yeah. And these people are great at that. And the same thing with copywriting. I am not a writer. Ooh, I have a kitty behind me.
Oh, kitty. I love it when animals and kids pop in. Oh, that is...
this is Cinderella.
Oh, that's so cute.
I'm sitting on a stool and I felt something behind me. What is
like, oh, wait.
Yeah. And so if, set aside money for some of that done for you. And then once it's done for you, and then have those people just show you how you go in and change a picture, this, that. But I spent so many hours trying to figure out myself, and it was mediocre versus that is someone else's brilliance. And they know what they're doing. And same with copywriting. Like, you're a writer. I'm more of a speaker. I love to speak. You would probably, your chakra, right? Yeah. I'm very open there.
I love it.
But I'm not the greatest gifted writer. And so I've paid people to get to know me. They know my style, and then they can do some awesome copywriting for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's well worth it.
That. That's amazing. And just one last time to thank you for all these jewels of wisdom. Your freebie, yes. You want to do a quick shout out to it one more time?
I will. Yeah. So you can go to my site, jodymaley.com. Like I said, I'm not the behind the scenes tech person. I had to revamp it a little bit ago. It's still in the works, but you know what? You'll see the free assessment on there. So if you go to jodymaley.com, there's a section there that you can just go right now, grab them while I still have them. I usually do them Mondays and Fridays. Okay. And this is to find out where you are in your sales, where you want to be, and what's in the way of getting you from where you are and where you want to be. That's all that the assessment is about.
That's amazing. Well, if I was anyone watching, and I may do it myself, Jody's amazing. She's just truly heart-centered. When you're there with her, you feel good, and like she sees you and just brings out your beauty. And if you were like me, where life had just kind of torn you to shreds, and you just need someone in your corner who's loving but will push you, Jody's amazing. So, all right, well, thank you so much for being here today with us in Boss Babe. For anyone watching, this is Jody, and she's the heart-centered entrepreneur, and you can check out her website. We'll have links everywhere, whether you're in the group, on our podcast, or on our YouTube channel. You can check her out. We'll be getting, we're in a lot of places. We just want to spread love and joy, and help lift everyone up. And thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks. All right. We'll see everyone next time. All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for being with us, and check out our Boss Babe Female podcast on YouTube.